Welcome everyone back to Character Productions for another Monte Carlo exit interview. We are joined tonight by my winner pick, Parker Barnett. Parker,
I was your winner pick?
You were.
Oh my God. Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm super happy to get to talk to y'all. It's always a good time. I wish it was under better circumstances, but no time is a bad time to talk to y'all, I always say.
Yeah, Parker said right when he came on, he wished it was in a couple weeks, and so do I. I am joined tonight, as always, by my co-host, Morgan Jackson. Morgan, how are you?
Doing great. Excited to chat with Parker. It's been a while since I've seen his face, so happy to get into it and hear all about his game.
And the mayor of the exit interviews, Lilly Petzold. Lilly, how are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to get into it.
Well,
not crack into
crack
it.
Away. Crack into it. Yeah, sorry.
What does that mean?
I've just been saying it, so it might not mean anything, but now it's just going to be said.
It's like fetch, you make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So right off the bat, Parker, just what are your biggest takeaways from the game? I guess things you enjoyed, your favorite parts about it, anything like that.
Oh man, where to start? A lot of good things. One thing that I thought was really, really cool was the one world twist y'all implemented. I know from talking to some of the other players that I was playing with that some of them were a little overwhelmed by it. And I can understand that, especially people who it was their first time, not fully understanding the time commitment. I actually thought it was awesome. I've never gotten to do that before. And being someone who understands the time commitment a little more, just because I've done this before, I didn't necessarily have a problem with it. So it was just a really cool. I love that not only did you get time to form relationships, you got to compete for your own safety. So it was like kind of putting fate into your own hands. That was an awesome way to start it. And just overall, this was just an awesome cast. I really think y'all did a great job picking them. I don't have a bad thing to say about anybody in the group, honestly. A lot of times, at least from my experience, I play games and, there's just people who I don't vibe with or honestly just don't like. But that wasn't the case this time, which not only made the game more fun, made it way harder to vote people out. So it was a double-edged sword in a way, but a lot of good things to say.
Yeah. So to start off on the comment you made about the one world, was there anybody you initially really gravitated towards during that section where you had everybody to kind of talk to?
Yeah. So not a shocker, probably to anybody. Margaret and I definitely formed a bond during that one world phase. Obviously we had the Texas thing. So that's something to talk about, obviously, but she just was honest, in our very first conversation about, she doesn't really know the show all that well. She's seen it, but she's not a super fan by any means. She was honest about, she was one of the later people to join the cast. So she's still trying to figure out how she wants to approach this. And I was just really gravitated to that. I was like, this is awesome. Not only do I like playing with people, it's their first time and maybe I can help them out. I just like her. And I also another person who really stood out was Victoria, which I don't know if that's shocking. I don't know if it comes across in the episodes, but I actually loved Victoria, still do. And we had a really solid relationship right at the start in that one world phase. She approached me. We had great one-on-ones. And so those are two that instantly stick out on my mind among a long list of others.
I think it's interesting that you point out Victoria, because we do see you and Margaret's relationship progress. You get put on the same tribe. You have a lot of opportunity. But after the merge, we see in the most recent episode that Victoria says, I want Parker to be one of my number ones. I want him to be one of the options. So it's sad that wasn't able to happen, because I think you guys would have really worked well together, especially if you had made a trio with Margaret. I think that would have been interesting to see.
Oh, I mean, that would have been awesome, obviously, and both you're seeing Victoria right now, she's really improved from her last season. So was Connor as well. So it's just, there's a lot of really good players, and I would have liked to see that as well.
Well, and so we see in the first challenge, the people that lose the different stages of it are the ones that go to tribal.
Yep.
And you're one of the ones that didn't win their portion of the challenge. Do you think that being in the loser, having to kind of do the strategy right off the bat, do you think that kind of changed your game moving forward? Or do you think it was just something to get through?
No, that's a great question. I didn't realize it at the time, but after that first tribal that got canceled, and then at the first real vote when Nick went out, I realized that actually might have been a blessing in disguise to be a part of that group, because as you see throughout the pre-merge, a lot of those relationships that were established in that round stuck, at least for the first few votes. And it grew a bond when I see someone like Andrew, right? Who's, Nick is pushing a McKenna vote, but he's one of the main people who's like, well, Nick's in a lot of different people's ears. What if we targeted him? That's a big move to start this game. And he's bold. And I like players that are bold and want to make big moves. So I gravitated to that. And also, as you see, I really do think being in that one world phase with people like McKenna, like Mike, like Kyle and Victoria ended up really paying off when I ended up joining the tribe when we swapped. Again, I'm not going to say it was solely because they like me. That's obviously they have their own motivations. But if I was someone, say, like Michael or Connor even, who was not ever on a team with them at that point, I think I'm probably gone. So it was just a really good thing that paid off. Obviously, I wanted immunity at the time. You saw me. I look like a dog with peanut butter on my nose trying to get that popsicle stick. Good humor there. But for strategy purposes, I think it really paid off.
Yeah, I think it does kind of create that core, like you said, group that is wanting to make decisions on your new tribe. And within that, we see kind of you, Andrew, and then Margaret. I can't remember if she was in that. She was, yeah.
She was, yeah.
Close. But then we see also pre-merge, you were getting close with also I keep saying also a lot. But with Kiley and Margaret, was there kind of one trio you were more leaning towards, or if you could have had your way, all four of you would have been like smushed together?
I just want to say, don't feel bad about saying one word a lot, because after watching myself in these recorded episodes, I had no idea I say a lot and all these other things. So do not feel bad. And I'm going to expect to see a lot more, even when this is on YouTube, of me, even after seeing that. But sorry, to honor your question. There you go. I think, so to answer your question, yeah, I definitely liked both groups of three that you mentioned. I liked the Margaret Andrew group, and I also liked the Margaret Kiley group, right? We had the connection in that first tribal council that got canceled. On that tribe, it was me, Margaret, Andrew, as well as Nick and Will, but we weren't going to vote with them. So in that first round, I thought Nick needed to go. I thought we needed to carry over the plan from the first tribal and finish the job, so to speak. But that was scary because Margaret, Andrew, and I took a lot of risks telling Connor and Michael and Kiley, because they easily could have gone to Nick and Will with all of that, and they form a five. So that was one of the scarier times of the game. I put a lot of cards on the table and trusting them. But that through doing that, that's what also sparked trust with people like Kiley and Michael for me, and even Connor a little bit, but especially Kiley and Michael, because they could have easily gone back at us. And that's where the trust in our game relationship began. But also that is where I was building personal relationships with them. So I did want the group of four that you mentioned, Lilly, to mesh if at all possible, and get through those first few rounds of the game. Long term, well, I'm sure that'll be a question later, but at least in the early stages of the game, I really tried to bridge those gaps.
Parker, we're talking about relationships right now, and we've kind of mentioned almost like everyone, especially when we mentioned everybody on Route 10 so far. What is one relationship? I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but what is one relationship that you had during the season that you feel like was strong, but it just didn't make the cut of the episodes, or like it just hasn't been showcased to the point where, you didn't go to a ton of tribals with the same group of people. So there was not a lot of opportunity to showcase you with maybe more people, because we saw you and Margaret and you and Andrew and you a lot. But what's one of those relationships?
That's a great question. And I think my answer is going to come from somebody who was on original Serpone. And because that we're established in the one world phase, but again, because of when I got voted off, I don't think it necessarily needed to make the cut, which is totally understandable. But two relationships shout out. I already shouted out Victoria and I's relationship. Like, we had a lot of one-on-ones. And she was just someone who was so good at looking at the numbers, and she actually knew how to do those advantages things. I was useless in that. So I was like, I want to align with somebody who's good at this kind of stuff. So that was great. But also someone like Mike. Mike was someone that I gravitated towards because he was one of the more, vocal players. And I think that's why you see in the episodes, he kind of gets the blame for a lot of those moves on early Serpone, because everybody wants to do those moves, but he's the one vocalizing it in front of the group. So he gets a lot of heat for that. I like playing with players like that because, well, they're a shield more or less, but also Mike was a connection that I don't know if on paper you put us together, but we just honestly have a lot in common. And I just really liked getting to play with him. I wish things would have gone a little bit differently, but those are definitely two relationships that I was really happy with and wanted to advance if I could. But that's just not the way the game went.
That's a good question, because going off of that, during the Kyle vote, we don't see a lot of your perspective through that vote, right? We see you mention that exactly what you said, Mike, he has a lot of connection. He's making a lot of the moves when you're with your Ruken people trying to figure out who to vote. What were you thinking through that? Were you trying not to vote Mike because you wanted to go with him long-term, or was it more so, I need to get back with my old tribe mates and show that they could trust me?
That's a great question. And that was probably the hardest vote to approach, because I had people on all sides wanting me to do something that was that I could not bridge those gaps. They wanted completely different things. And that it started with the Elijah vote, right? Because I had to do whatever I had to do to survive. And basically from there on out, until I get voted off, the way I had to approach every vote was completely different from the beginning portion of the game. That changed my strategy, and I had to adapt. And that's what makes this game great. You have to adapt. But my thought process was, okay, I'm in this group, and publicly, all Kyle and Mike just saved me, right? And Margaret, but they saved me, right? So everybody in the game sees that. So they're going to think either we struck some sort of deal, or there's an alliance there, something. And whether or not people care, it's always going to be in the back of their minds. And I knew that. And also I have people from my original tribe and people I was really working with, like Kiley and Andrew and Michael. And I'm like, my fear was if I gave them a glimpse that I was trying to play the middle, both sides, or even worse, jump ship, I'm gone. Like, it would have been so easy for the original Ruken and the original Serpone to knock me out there. It's like, hey, this guy's kind of got his foot in both camps here. Let's knock him out. That's what I did not want to happen. So my approach that round was literally whatever happens, happens, because I knew the one thing I wanted to happen that round was not going to happen. So as much as I tried to make everybody feel like I was with them, I knew that wasn't what was going to happen, unfortunately. So my game that round was about perception. I did not want to take the wheel on that vote, because I was fairly confident. I didn't know for sure, but I was fairly confident the merge was next. And I'm like, I went through a traumatic experience in the last vote. I don't want to go through all of that just to get cut now right before the merge. So I'm like, this is not the time to drive the car, as they say on Real Survivor, that analogy. I probably messed it up, but I just wanted to get through that vote. And so I just kind of had to surrender to whatever people wanted to do at that point. Because if you see in the episode, I'm not really the one throwing out names. Mm-hmm. Like that call that was with original Ruken and Jonathan is there. That was them trying to, like, I called it like shaking me down for information. I'm like, well, I have to give them information. They don't want me to think I'm hiding any or not giving them enough, but I'm not going to directly say a name. So that was my approach that round.
You mentioned the vote previous, and I definitely wanted to bring this one up because throughout the season, Morgan is in every chat, basically giving us like live feed reactions as to what's happening. I'm
Yeah.
watching every confessional in Zoom that's turned in, trying to give, our team, make sure we always want to know what's going on. We always want to make sure we're prepared. And Parker shows up to the final 13 vote with Elijah and writes Margaret's name down. And Parker leaves the vote in confessional. We're all like, what the hell is going on? Where did that come from? And lo and behold, Parker makes this insane play to tie the vote, basically, if, the majority had been blocked. And that was one of those times where I was like, dang, we got outplayed by our own Castaways. Just not something that like you think of in the moment, because you came in all sad about who you were voting, and like we knew who was going home, so we didn't think you'd be sad. And then, you write Margaret's name down. But yeah, I had to bring that up because I remember that moment being like, nice play. Because
that was
you.
super smart move.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And part of the reason, I don't know if this I don't think it came across the episode. Part of why there's no footage of it is because I didn't decide to do that until probably 10 minutes before tribal, honestly, based on the information I had at the time, because I was fairly confident that they were going to vote Elijah there. Mm-hmm. They had done a lot of reassuring me, but one is you never know for sure, but also you got to take that part of it. The bigger concern was I knew, because they told me Elijah previously found the 50-50 coin, and y'all had put a sneaky little new advantage right as we swapped. And I'm like, I know Elijah is capable of finding these things. And I'm like, if he plays something, all of our votes for Elijah won't count, and then I'm out, because they never told me directly that I was the decoy vote. But that was just kind of what I picked up on from body language. And also because Margaret had told me Elijah had a one-on-one with her. He didn't have one with me. So I'm like, okay, if I'm just going off of that, I think he's more likely to vote me. And this is, again, another relationship that didn't get to factor into the episodes, but Victoria's the one who told me and confirmed that that Elijah was voting me. So using that information, I was like, I remember going into the voting room with y'all, and I'm like, can I ask a question about the tiebreaker rules?
Yeah.
Just to make sure. And that's when I wrote down Margaret's name. I didn't want to. I didn't feel good about that necessarily, but I knew if things go sideways, that was why. So honestly, I'd love to take credit and say it was this master plan that I always thought of, but it was more or less just gut instinct and based on what little information I had, and I tried to make a move. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate y'all's shout outs for that.
I think the gut instinct is more impressive than the master plan. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
More props.
Now, am I correct in that you never told Margaret that you put that vote on her in game?
Yeah, that is correct. That's correct. I gotta yeah, that was.
So why were you afraid to tell her, even though it was a vote to protect her? I mean, you didn't vote her to vote her out.
Right. So that's a great question. That was one of the main things that I think was probably confusing to other people in the game, because I think people quickly picked up on it was me, because in theory it makes the most sense for me to do that, but I lied about it. So they just have to take my word for it, whether or not they believe me. But I was just concerned that, again, it was a last second thing. So I don't even think there was any time to tell Margaret beforehand. But my fear was, if I did, let's say I talked to Margaret 2 minutes before, if I say, Margaret, I'm voting you, even if I explained it, my fear was Margaret might get spooked. Parker threw me under the bus. We made this pact to not throw each other under the bus. He's voting me. And if she threw a vote onto me and Elijah had an advantage, I'm now out in a 2 by 2 votes, and to her 1. So that was just my fear. I didn't want to lose her trust. I never did. And that was just my concern. That was a relationship that was really pivotal to my game, and I just did not want to lose it. So that was my concern. Hindsight, probably should have just told her anyway, but that was just the concern, thinking she will never forgive me if I write her name down, because she said we had multiple talks, because Will voted for her the round Nick went out, and she was adamant about how she just doesn't think she can ever trust Will again. She likes Will, but that lost her trust. I'm like, well, if Will did that and she's not even necessarily aligned with him, imagine how she's going to feel about me. So that was the thought behind that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's hindsight's 2020. If I could have done it differently, I probably would have, but that was the thought at the time.
And I think that honestly, like, speaks to, you understand the people that you're playing with, right? Margaret plays with her heart and might have a hard time getting past that, even though maybe like logically, strategically, you were making that move out of protection for her.
Right.
No,
I one thing I really tried to spend time doing was figure out how people were in both one-on-ones and group conversations. I'm not going to say I excelled at it, but that was definitely something coming into the game I wanted to focus on, because everybody approaches the game differently. Some people are just uber strategic, don't really want to talk personal at all, which is fine. They just want to hear who you're voting. Other people like the 3-4 hour long calls where you get to know people, where there's like 10 seconds of strategy. So it's just about knowing the group you're with. And that's something that I think a lot of people in this game tried to do in addition to me. And that's what made the strategy so fun, but also difficult, because you had very smart people.
I would put you in one of the smart people. I think like everything we're talking about, the gut, you know what I mean? I think you're good with the numbers, perception. I think what's interesting is you get the first individual immunity, and right off the bat, you're dissecting how people played the game, not just
Right.
like, oh, I won, I'm just going to like be happy. You're like, I wasn't picked until the end, which I think is really insightful. And only you and Andrew do that. And so I think that really showed that you're looking at everything that everybody's doing. And I think that's a great testament to how you play. But when you did win that immunity challenge, were you worried that that was going to put a target on your back?
I was, like I said, I had to adapt my strategy after the Elijah vote. Early on, my strategy was I'm going to, regardless of what happens in swaps, I am going to pick apart the best people from Moorhead and even the best people from Serpone and pick the best group and go with that. I wasn't necessarily Moorhead strong or flip on my original team. That's what I wanted to do. But because I had people publicly kept me safe when I should have gone home on paper, I had to always keep that in the back of my mind. So I didn't get to take the wheel on the Kyle vote, like I said. So I was like, this is something I think I can win. I had a really bad showing in that in that card tossing challenge. My internet knocked me out, for crying out loud. So I'm like, I just need to go and get a win on something I think I can do. Keep myself safe. Don't be the first out the merge. So although I was concerned, absolutely, it was just one of those things in the moment you don't think about because you're just so eager to get that win.
You mentioned like a perfect meld. If you could have had a perfect meld of majority, who do you think would have been in there, and who would you have tried to go after? Because I assume Andrew would have been in there, so then he wouldn't have gone home.
Right. Andrew was in that. Again, it was kind of just more whittling out the people that I just didn't quite know where their heads at, or I didn't think wanted to trust me long term. Like someone like Will. I love Will. Will's awesome. We had great talks when we did, but I just never thought he was going to be able to get over the fact that we left him out of that Nick vote. So I never fully knew with him. Connor, he's smart. He knew the advantages, but again, I just could never really get a read on him. Truly, he was very quiet, kind of let other people talk and give intel, and he didn't really give a lot back. So that worried me. And someone like Jonathan, I knew Jonathan was smart from the beginning. He, even in the One World phase, he just has a very calm demeanor about himself. He's really good socially, and not the way where it's like all like happy and positive and laughing constantly. It's just a really calm, I can relate to you type of thing. And he has a really good way. He has a good head on his shoulder. So I was like, this guy is good. Like and by the time I got on a team with him, the Kyle vote, I just thought our games were completely like too far gone to work together realistically. So I'm like, those have been some of the people that, at least in my mind, that I didn't necessarily have allegiances to or a working relationship up to that point. So those would have been, in an ideal world, the people that would have been first few out of the merge. And then we would have just gone from there.
Again, I think that's a good read, because those are the people that flip, right? And are the reasons why Andrew, gets voted out. What was your plan to bounce back from that vote, knowing that you were not in the majority? If this had been a regular vote out where
Right.
you had like a day or however long.
Well, at that point, going all the way back to even the original Ruken, I would hear things anecdotally about, oh, you're just so likable, Parker, or oh, you're just, people have a good vibe about you. I'm like, well, that's nice, but that's not really what I want to hear if everybody's saying that. So, and that followed me even on the tribe that I got put on Serpone 2.0, and it didn't really come up in the Kyle round because it sped up, but I knew it was out there. So I was like, if people think this about me, after Andrew went, I am going to use that. I'm going to come to the other people who, in theory, also have a target on their back. And I'm like, look, guys, I know you're not going to take me yet, but use me while I'm here. I don't have anybody. I'm a shield. You know what I'm saying? People have already said I'm not in their final three plans. I'm only good at trivia. Like, use me while I'm here and cut me when it's necessary. That's what I would have said. I don't want them to cut me when it's necessary, but you have to be political a little bit. You have to say that stuff. So that's what I would have pitched, at least. Again, had we had more time, could it have worked? Maybe that's an alternate universe there, but that's at least what I would have tried.
Mm-hmm. And we see in what ultimately becomes your vote out is you go straight into a scramble after the challenge. How do you think that affected your game? Because really what happens in most scrambles is people sit around and don't say a name, and then you'll hear one or two and they kind of stick. Why do you think your name stuck over the one that you threw out, which I think was Will?
It was. I think it stuck because a couple things. It's one, it's easy because I wasn't on the right side of the vote. So that's something that people can easily already gravitate towards. I didn't actually know this at the time, but apparently if you go by the confessionals, I think a lot of people actually wanted Margaret out at that vote, but she wanted muted, which is great. But I think if the only targets on the board for the people who voted Andrew out last time are people who didn't vote with them, then that just leaves me and Michael. And if you think, well, Parker's close to Margaret, if we want to weaken Margaret, we'll take out Parker, or he just won the last immunity challenge, so let's take him out now, type of thing. So I think it was a lot of little factors adding up. And I actually, as much as I didn't feel good about throwing Will's name out there, I forget who, but someone kind of let it slip that he threw out mine. I didn't know that when I threw out Will's name, but because people were not saying it to me, obviously, but when someone slipped that, oh, Will threw out your name, I'm like, okay, well then I really think I made the right read here. And the only reason I honestly even threw out Will was because in that scramble, he was the one person that I knew that of the people who could be voted out, that people previously said they would be fine voting him out. Like people like McKenna, people like Mike, people like Kiley. Unbeknownst to me, Mike and Kiley have formed a relationship with Will. But again, I'm just going off of previous information. I'm like, Will's probably my best shot. If people in the past are saying they'd vote for him, that's really the only shot I got, because I didn't want to throw Michael under the bus. He was one of the only people I trusted. And I was like, if I'm going to survive this vote, I need Michael in this game. So getting rid of him just means I'm getting ninth instead. So I didn't want to do that. Took a shot, but didn't quite work. But that was at least the thought process.
That scramble round to me is just mind-boggling. I mean, this DCP runs minis. Like, I've never seen a scramble round start and finish with the same two names. No one said any other name. It was Parker or Will from, and literally that first clip after the challenge is Will, that first scramble, and it's within the first 10 seconds that Will says Parker, and that was it. Parker comes in, says Will, that was it. And I think part of the reason is because Margaret is safe, like you said, the majority or the people like Jonathan, Mike, Victoria, like they all wanted Margaret out of the game. And then the second thing is you said each other's names. So like no one else is going to say, I mean, there was a half hour between challenge and when we voted somebody out.
Yeah.
So there was no chance that anybody was going to speak up and say a name when there was two names that weren't theirs on the table. They weren't going to get their hands dirty when they didn't have to. And yeah, I mean, obviously you ended up on the short end of the stick. And we had probably 7 people come into the voting booth and say, I'm just going to go with the majority tonight.
Yeah.
No, they said even worse than that. They said, I don't want to be voting Parker out. I can't get the votes to switch. There's nothing I can do to get the vote switch. And the majority of people came in and said that. And I was like, what are you doing? Just make a move that's smart for your game. Don't just play scared.
I know we always say hindsight is 20/20, but like in that moment, I felt like I still feel like I'm blind, because I don't think anybody could have actually made another decision, because there was no one else that the group could agree on in that short of time. There was going to be no way to pitch a case. It was just like, hey, someone said Parker's name, that ain't mine. So, you know what, I'll do it. Especially that group, because you were on the wrong side of the votes last time. It just made sense. There was no, that group that was in majority was just going to be in majority. Michael tried to make his way into the majority of this vote by switching. Again, even if he voted Will, I feel like it was a good move for Michael to at least write your name down, even though, like you said, voting for Michael wouldn't have done anything for your game.
Yeah. And to y'all's point about being surprised that only 2 names stuck, I think that's that's what makes this game great. It's always depending on the group you have. Left at that point in the game, you had people who this is their first game, and the last thing they want to do, they just want to make it each round to have this really cool experience, and they don't want to go out like this, so they're going to do whatever. You had people like Connor who, he wants to get past every round. He wants to do better than he did last time. Same with Victoria. And you have people like Jonathan or Mike or Kiley who've played more than one of these games before. So they have the experience to know this is real. If this is not me, this is really not the time to push for what I want. So that was smart of them not to do that, especially if it wasn't them. So I totally understand everyone's perspective on it, just wanting to get by it. I wanted to get by it. I was kind of put into a position where I had to make something happen if I want to survive. But if I didn't have to, I wouldn't have. So I cannot blame anybody. And obviously my own mistakes in the game were a factor in me leaving. I can't not say that. But that was part of why you see in my final words, I was talking about how I forget exactly what I say. I basically said something along the lines of, none of you are going to say you voted me out because I was a threat, but I'll take it as a compliment. Because what I didn't want to happen was when people come to the jury and I asked them why they voted me, I was just going to expect people to say, oh, the numbers weren't there. I'm sorry. I didn't want to vote you. And if a majority of people said that when they came to the jury, I would have been like, all of you said this. You could have done something. You know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at them when I said that. It's just, I just didn't want to get that reasoning. That's just one of the things in these games, and I've done it too, so I'm a total hypocrite, but that's just one of the reasons people always give when they explain their vote. Oh, the numbers weren't going to flip. It wasn't there. It wasn't the time wasn't there. And I've used it myself. I use it in this game, in fact, but it's just never feels good when you're on the receiving end of it. So that's kind of what I meant by that. I really wasn't upset at people from a personal standpoint. I was just kind of upset from a game standpoint. I was like, if you voted me out, just say it was because you didn't trust me or because you thought I might be a contender. Just don't say it's because, that's where the numbers were. I just didn't want to hear that.
Now, I feel like the question has to be asked, if this had been like a regular length round, do you think that the vote would have still landed on you? Like, let's say it's like a normal kind of 24, 48-hour turnaround between challenge and tribal. Do you think it would have been the same?
See, there's 2 different answers there, because there's the one where I want to obviously say I survived. So that's the first answer. Obviously I would have. But then there's the realistic answer of maybe. I know what I would have said, and I know I would have come to people, like I would have hoped Margaret and Michael would have stuck with me, right? But I would have come to people, I would have said, Kiley, Mike, Victoria, even, whoever. I'm like, look, I understand I was left out of the last vote, but like, hear me out, and then I would have given my reasons. So if there was time to explain my thought process a little bit more, like even just 24 hours, yeah, maybe I think people would have at least heard me out. Do I think it would have made a difference? I don't know. I think the jury's always going to be on that one. I think no matter what, that's a tough round for me to get by without immunity and with Margaret being safe, because that seems like the name a lot of people could agree on at that point. So it would have been a tough sell, but I would have definitely had more time to process why I think people should vote for so-and-so than I did in the scramble where it's just, all right, I got to say a name type of thing. I don't really have time to think of a compelling argument. So I think people have at least heard me out, but I don't know if I would have survived for sure.
I think a reasoning, like not only for you to think of a reason to vote somebody out, but also for it to sink into other people's mind. Like you need time to convince someone it's the best move and to talk to them multiple times. And I think even if you had thrown out a name and people weren't convinced right away, it just doesn't stick in these scramble rooms.
And the scramble rooms are tough because you never know who's going to like pop in. If you're trying to have a really important strategic conversation with your closest ally and somebody you don't want hearing the conversation comes in, you're kind of out of luck there. So. That
definitely happened to me where I was trying to go a little bit deeper with why we should vote Will. And then, oh, here comes Will. It's like good timing. And then it was like, and you even saw in the episode, you know, Kiley was saying, oh, I want to say this thing, but Michael's coming in and I want Michael to hear it. So that's just part of why this round is so compelling, because we're playing a long game format. And now we have to play a mini. And some of these people have mini experience, but most of us don't. I don't have mini experience like this. You know, the minis I played were much different. These are actually like very well put together, like well thought out minis when y'all do them. So it was new experience for me as well as it was, I think, for most people. So I think people were just paranoid and not wanting to go out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those were all the questions I have. I don't know if you lovely hosts have any other than the Facebook.
I have one from McKenna Feeney before we get to Facebook.
All right.
I believe Miss McKenna Feeney also has access to our Facebook. She could put them in there too. She said, Parker, I thought we would never see you play a DCP game, so I was surprised and elated when I saw your application. My question to you is, if you could pick 4 other people from this cast to represent the Monte Carlo family in a game of Family Feud, who would you pick and why?
Oh my gosh.
That's an amazing question.
This is Parker and 4 other people playing Family Feud.
And I assume Parker's like the first person that comes up to the stand and shakes someone's hand.
This is an amazing question. And this is why I hope to give a lot of good answers, because I saw some of the questions and they were very good. And I hope I can either, you know, you saw I'm a little theatrical in that freaking charades challenge. So hopefully I can pay off. But let's see. 4 names. Okay. I think I think Michael would be a lot of fun. He's just a really funny guy. I think there's so many good contenders. I think Margaret would be a lot of fun. So I'll pick those 2. I'm also gonna say who else? I'm gonna say Kiley, because I think Kiley is the one who's gonna be funny, but also actually have a grip on what the answer should be. Because she just is really good with people that way. And the last person I'm gonna pick, not because I think they'll necessarily be good at it, is Victoria, because anytime you ask her a question, she won't answer. And I think that'd be a lot of fun. So that'd be the team.
All right. So
nice.
Parker, Michael, Victoria, Margaret, and Kiley.
Kiley. Yeah.
All right.
All right. We asked our Monte Carlo cast for some questions for Parker because of the timing of our interview. We did post it on Facebook, but didn't get a ton of questions there. So our cast asked some great questions though. Margaret asks, out of every contestant who has ever played CBS Survivor, who is your all-time favorite brain, all-time beauty, and all-time brawn?
So I love this question because this is a full circle moment. This is one of the first things Margaret and I even talked about. She said she was binging Cagayan at the very start of the game. So that was one of our early conversations. So this is kind of full circle. So I like that. So I'm going to go with for Brain, Rob Sesternino. He really elevated the strategy of this game. He's obviously I'm biased because he's one of my favorite players, but just people still emulate his game to this day. So I'm going to go with Brain for him. For Beauty, I'm going to go with Suri, because when you see the actual seasons, it's a lot of like very young 20-somethings. People look like they could be Abercrombie and Fitch models. So it's like, but when I think of Beauty and Survivor, I think of it more than just physical appearance as well. I think there's so much to it. And the way Suri plays the game is she is so good with people. You know, it's a beautiful thing in life and in the game to inspire people, to build them up, to connect with people, to relate to them. And I just think Suri masters that, for lack of a better term, beautifully. So I'm going to say her. And then for the Brawn, well, I had a few going back and forth in my head. I'm going to go with Ozzy. And I like saying Ozzy because I think even Rob and Suri, they're all around fantastic players, but they're not great at every facet of the game, but they're so good at the ones that I picked them for. And like Ozzy, I don't think is a great player, but like there's no denying he is one of the best at that specific facet of the game, as in the brawn and challenges. So I'm going to pick him for brawn.
Yeah, I think Ozzy will forever kind of be the face of challenge beasts, even if
I
there
think so.
are more to come after him.
Yeah.
Good picks. All right. Next question is from Nick. Parker, you had a really strong social game, were a challenge beast, and had a good strategic sense. How did you perceive your threat level throughout the game? Is there anything you could have done to lower it while still playing a strong game?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
I think that's the $1 million question, honestly, because if I manage it better, maybe I'm not a target as early as I was. See, and I'll give my take, but that's honestly something I'd be more curious. Y'all know more than I do, and y'all saw more Zooms, so maybe y'all have a better answer than I will. But I guess in theory, maybe I could have just been not as talkative. One of the things I wanted to do very early on was I wanted to be in the majority on the starting tribe, because I've been in it before in previous games, but sometimes by choice I played the middle, and sometimes not by choice I played the middle, and I've had to be on the bottom and scrape by. So I didn't really want to do that if I could avoid that this game. So maybe being so openly in the majority of what was perceived as the hierarchy of Route 10, perhaps if I could have just done better jobs with relationships with people like Connor or Will, perhaps maybe I could have been a little less talkative. I don't know. There's a lot of little things I think I could have done. I think that's one of the cool things about this game. I think sometimes we focus so much on the big things not to do that sometimes we forget the small stuff. Like there's so many little things I could have done that are so obvious in hindsight, and I'm still kicking myself about it, but I didn't think about it. I was too focused on the big stuff. So I'm curious actually from y'all, do y'all think there was maybe something I could have done to not be, I guess, a perceived threat?
All I can think of is like, I mean, honestly, I was gonna say like could have made it so you weren't so close to Andrew, because that really seemed like why this vote happened the way it did, just because you were on the wrong side of the votes last time.
Yeah.
And then I was gonna say, well, like Margaret was told about the Andrew vote, which like a testament to Margaret's relationship and also her relationship with Andrew at the same time was really, it's a really good relationship. So knowing both sides is pretty wild, but she was the target at this vote, not you. So, which again, from their side of things, wanting to target people who are close to Andrew makes sense. That's honestly, that's all I can think of. Maybe going a little harder on your relationships post Elijah vote, but pre-swap, like final 12 swap, because you couldn't do much before that. So, but again, I mean, I don't know for sure. So
I appreciate that.
I don't know.
That's I feel like I remember you talking about intentionally lowering your threat level and how you intentionally will like ask questions when we're at challenges or like
Yeah,
or
I'd
like
love to say
like
all
kind
of
of
that
like
was
come
on
off like
purpose.
what's
But
that?
some of those where I really didn't understand.
Okay, but I swear I remember having a conversation with you where you said that you like the way that you act around everybody is very intentional to kind of lower that perception of, you know, oh, Parker has like a really good head for the game. So they're not like thinking about that. I think it's hard to hide like how sociable you are and likable you are. And that's just who you are, right? You can't not be who you are when you play the game, even if you're trying to not be who you are. But I almost wonder if that first immunity challenge put more of a spotlight on you because of the fact that you weren't picked until what, there were 4 people left.
Yeah.
Was it 4 people left?
Yeah.
And I don't know how closely people were paying attention, but like that does say something. That says something that people were fine with you having immunity, right? Out of everybody else. And maybe they're like, if everybody's like good with Parker, maybe I need to be thinking about my relationship with Parker in this game. I don't know.
No, I appreciate that a lot. And I was just being funny. You're absolutely right, Morgan. That was a conversation I had with you in a confessional at some point. I really did, because I was hearing it very, like I said, anecdotally throughout the game. And I was just, I was confused because I was like, I mean, am I really, guys? You're worried about me? But I think it's, but it was a compliment. I appreciate it. So I had to be intentional about that. Again, like I said, I had to, perhaps, like you said, Ian, if I didn't take the backseat approach and just kind of let the powers that be happen at that Kyle vote, maybe things would have been a little bit different. I couldn't give everybody what they wanted there. Like I said, I had to remember the fact that there was a public display of someone saving me, or 2 people at that point, right? But I also had my original alliance that, like, I can't jeopardize that. I thought I was in a good spot with them, so I'm like, I can't jeopardize that, especially not before the merge. Why make a big play like that? So I think it was just a lot of things that were situational, but absolutely, there was definitely things on my part that I could have done, that perhaps even little things like maybe not win that first immunity, like I said. Maybe that was bad in hindsight. But at the time, I didn't even think about it. I was just so eager to win one. And I thought, oh, this is something I can do. But again, I think you make a good point. Maybe in hindsight, that was something that maybe brought me more to the forefront when I could have stayed in the shadows just a hair longer.
Yeah. All right. Next question is from Kyle. If Elijah hadn't shown up at Serpone 2.0, what would have been your plan of action?
I was going to say, be depressed.
All the episodes. We already saw that.
Yeah, that's true. It would have been even worse. I'm telling you, it would have been worse. What would have been my plan of action? So the funny thing about that is that was probably the worst swap I've ever had. And yet on paper, it's actually pretty good because I had a working relationship to some degree with all those people. Going back to that first tribe that got canceled, the problem was there was nobody on that team until Elijah got there that wasn't a part of that. So, and Kyle even mentioned that himself to me during the game. It was like there was no one at that point to necessarily vote out because they had more reasons to want to work with me and Margaret than other Rookhead members, right? Taking out Kylie and Mike's relationship. As far as they know, that made sense. But I think I honestly just would have played the card of, look, guys, if I think you guys need to keep threats around with you. You guys don't have the numbers at this point in time. It's hard to think of that far back because it was really a quick turnaround when we lost the challenge. And then I think 25 minutes later, Elijah joined, but it's a great question. That's probably what I would have done. I would have just hopefully thought people would have seen me as a bigger target and wanted to keep me around for that reason. That would have been my goal. I wasn't going to throw Margaret under the bus. I thought that gives me no credibility. They're like, oh, this guy's throwing under someone he just picked over everybody because he was the team captain. Like, this guy just threw her under the bus. He's not loyal. So I wasn't going to do that, but I just was hoping people saw the qualities I brought and wanted to keep going. I would have really relied on the relationships of Victoria, Mike, Kyle, and even McKenna that I was forming that round. So it would have just purely, I think, been relationship-wise that I would have stuck around.
All right. Next question is from Victoria. I'm not quite sure what it means, but maybe you will, Parker.
Okay.
Okay. She said, right after the Andrew vote, did you have the impression that it wouldn't be clear who flipped? I don't really know what she's asking here.
Let's see. No,
or
I think
maybe
I
is it like you were trying to figure out what Ruken people voted Andrew out?
Yeah, I think she's just asking if I knew immediately or if I ever knew. Yeah, after it happened, I kind of put two and two together at like, okay, who benefits the most from flipping? Will, Connor. So that kind of made sense. Kiley was the one that it took a while to figure out. I don't even honestly remember if I figured out in the game. I might have been voted off before I figured that out, but that I kind of pretty soon picked up on Connor and Will. Connor and I had a one-on-one soon after where he told me. So that was kind of easy there, but so half, yeah, kind of fast, Victoria, to answer your question, but Kiley was the one that I didn't see coming.
All right. Is there a pre-merge move you wish you would have made instead that could have gotten you farther in the game? That's from Greg.
Yes. When I alluded to earlier that what I wanted to happen at the final 12 vote didn't happen. If I had my way, right, and let's just say everybody wants to do what I want, I would have voted out Jonathan. And the only reason is not because I didn't like Jonathan, but like if I'm looking at the 7 people I'm voting with that round, Jonathan is the only person who I have not been on a team with and didn't just save me. So I'm like, if I want to appease both parties, I get no blood on my hands if Jonathan goes home. Plus, like I knew at that point, Kyle and Mike were telling me they don't trust Jonathan. So I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, I was thinking he's still original Serpone. So if we have to vote out original Serpone, we could vote out Jonathan. But that's the move that I wish I would have made. But again, it was not going to happen. And it's a testament to Jonathan's game that Andrew and Kiley said, I don't want to vote out Jonathan there. They told me that immediately when we had a conversation. They really felt good about him. And I can't blame him. He formed great relationships and it was really smart. But that's the move I can see maybe helping my favor. Because I think if Jonathan's gone, that opens up a few more people. Like Victoria's not with him necessarily anymore. McKenna's not. And Kiley doesn't have this feeling of trust with him. And then, so I think if he's gone, that kind of opens up things a little bit.
Yeah. That definitely would have changed the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question is from Kiley. Parker, my biggest regret in the game is not getting to have a conversation with you after the Andrew vote. If we had gotten to talk, would you have still trusted and wanted to work with me? And based on how things played out from the merge, what would have been your ideal final 3?
So, Kiley, no hard feelings. Totally get it. I think that was also really bad timing because I think it was your, I want to say husband's birthday. So I totally understand you had other things going on. No hard feelings. Yes, I would have still trusted you because at that point, Andrew's gone. Well, that's an ally that I think really trusted me. So I'm like, I can't dwell on the past. I need to move forward in this game. I've lost a lot of social capital, obviously. So I still would have trusted you and kept voting with you forward. Would I have been a little salty? Sure. But like in the grand scheme of things, yes, I still would have voted with you. Did that hurt our trust? Sure. But I still would have voted with you. And ideal final 3. So didn't truly have one, if I'm going to be honest. I had a lot of final 3 plans, but the true one I never fully decided on. I was going to wait till we got closer to the end of the game to decide that. Because I think if you lock in a final 3 at like final 11 or final 10, and when I say lock in, I don't mean just say it. I mean, this is what I'm going to be working for the rest of the game. I think that's a little too early, at least in my opinion. I didn't want to have to do that. So I had a final 3, Kiley, with you and Margaret, had one with Andrew and Margaret had one with Margaret and Michael. So maybe one of those combinations. And if I put my heart in it, like I shouldn't have, I may have even brought Victoria. So it just would depend on what I thought was the best move at the time. I'm not necessarily someone who wants to take people who I'm only taking them just because I think I can beat them. Because my logic is if I'm not going to win this game in the end, I want someone who I'm really happy about to win. So even if I think they have a good shot against me, I will be so happy for them if they win. So I wasn't concerned if people I thought would blow me out of the water.
All right. Next question is from Andrew. Parker, if I had won immunity when you did, who do you think would have gone home? So if Andrew has immunity at the merge vote.
So let's see. So I think if they still want like the Serpones and the Wills and the Connors to still make a big move, perhaps it could have been me. Maybe they thought voting me out would be a big move. But I mean, as we see, I'm more confident now seeing how the episode is going, or this last episode was, hearing people talk about how they want to target Margaret. Perhaps Margaret goes there. She was seen as very close to you, Andrew, so which is true. So perhaps she goes there. That I think it'd probably be potentially me, but also I think there was a chance Margaret could have gone, unfortunately.
I could see that. All right. Important question from McKenna. What
All right, let's hear
is your go-to McDonald's order?
Okay, so we're getting to the questions now that I have not seen yet. Like I saw a couple of them earlier in the day, so now from here on out, it's going to be a surprise. McKenna asking the hard-hitting journalist questions. I love it. That is so her. 20-piece chicken McNugget with a medium fries, of course. I used to be able to do a large fries when I was younger, but then obviously can't do that now, so got to get the medium fries. And I don't know what it is about McDonald's Sprite. It's awful for you, but it tastes better than normal Sprite, so obviously you have to throw that in there. But yeah, if you're not getting the McNugget, what'd you say?
I said the McDonald's Sprite and the McDonald's Diet Coke hit different than
they do, yeah. I thought you were talking trash. Sorry.
Now, what kind of sauce do you get with your chicken nuggets? That's an important question.
We got to get we got to get a lot. We got to get the barbecue. We got to get sweet and sour. There's a couple others we can get in there, but those are the main two.
All right.
I love that.
I'm a honey mustard fan.
Buffalo.
No, I have never been a mustard fan, unfortunately, of any kind.
Not mustard, honey mustard. There's a big difference.
You are correct. There is a difference, but to my basic taste buds as a child, I could not tell it, and that just stuck with me into adulthood.
All right. Last question is from Mike.
Awesome.
If and when I come to Texas, I'm fully expecting you to ride a bull longer than Will. You know, because you're from Texas and all. If you can ride it for longer than a minute, I buy drinks all night. Less than a minute, you buy drinks all night. My question to you, sir, is do we have a deal?
You know, what's funny about that, Mike, is if you come down to Texas, there's a good chance we can ride a real bull. You know, they have bull riding everywhere. You can just sign up for it where I'm at. So if you don't even want to do the mechanical, we can go to the real thing. You have a deal, my good sir.
A minute is a long time on a mechanical bull.
Yeah, it is even on a mechanical bull. It really is. That's very impressive that Will was able to do that.
All right. That's all we got from the cast. So
awesome.
Thanks everybody for your questions. They were fun questions.
Oh, they were a lot of fun. I makes me feel good that they as many people sending questions as they did.
All right, Parker, we like to ask 2 last questions at the end of every exit interview. If you could sum up your game in 1 word, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with cathartic. And the reason why is because, as y'all know, I took a break from these and I came back and I was like, okay, I have a very specific set of things I want to accomplish in this game. I know the game is going to be put on well, but these are the things I want to do, right? And not only did I do that, I got way more than I even thought I would. I got so much more out of it. And doing things that either I made mistakes about in previous games or just even trying new things, succeed or fail. I tried new things. And that was just a very cathartic experience. And I was just very happy to get that done. That's the word I would go for.
It's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
Before I get to my question, I do want to.
Okay.
Tonight, Parker is wearing an old school Survivor shirt.
Yeah.
I think Parker emulates old school Survivor to a T. I think you could drop Parker in any season 1 to 10, and Parker's going to do really well. I feel like, yes, you have a mind for the current game, but not too many people who play these online versions have like the I don't even know how to say it. Just the sympathy and empathy that were back in the day for old school Survivor. I think we kind of talked about it earlier, but like people can have one conversation with you and just know how nice you are immediately. So right away, people are like, oh, we like Parker. I talked to him for 5 minutes earlier for the first time. And that hangs around for a while. So yeah, I think you chose a proper shirt for yourself this evening.
No, thank you. I like I said in the preseason, the winner I compared myself most to. I said Ethan's on. This is his shirt. As soon as these came out, I want to say 2 years ago now. It feels like forever ago. That's a different world. I had to buy this shirt, and I'm like, had to rep it tonight. And thank you very much.
Ethan also said that he was rooting for you on our Instagram. So
talk about when I say I was so excited when I read that. I was so excited. That made my whole month, maybe my whole year. I love that. I love Ethan. If I could meet any Survivor player, he's like one of the top people on the list. So that was awesome.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, Parker. My question for this season is, who up to this point in the game, from marooning to when you get voted out, has impressed you the most and why?
Yeah. And what's funny about this is part of why my confessionals were so long, longer than necessary, was because I would always try to use that time to, when I discuss people, talk about why they were good at the game and why they were a threat. So I truly never tried to underestimate people. I still did because I'm human and I had blind spots, but I truly didn't try to. So I was always impressed with everybody. I knew they could handle it. But I'm going to go with two people, and it's for the same reason. Because in that one world phase, at the start of the game, I was pulled into two different alliances. The losers is what I called them. No one liked that. That was the group that lost the first challenge. And oh Lord, I've heard so many names for this. Elijah called it the introverts. Kyle called it freaks and geeks. I was calling it the six. I didn't even know we had a name, but I was pulled into that alliance as well. And those were the two alliances I was in at the start of the game. And if you see the configurations of the Serpone team, Kyle and Victoria were a part of two different alliances. So watching them go to those first two tribals, the only two people that were voted off on Serpone were Julie and Micah. Obviously, there was reasons behind that, but being an outsider on Ruken, looking at that, watching if Kyle and Victoria were able to pull that off to give themselves so many options was really impressive to me. Watching on the outside looking in, because other people are gonna, the people who won the first challenge probably assume there was some deal or something struck between the losers. That's what our name is, but they don't know for a fact. And people like Jonathan, who was a part of both groups, but he wasn't part of the losers group, so he can only assume if there's a real group like that. And I don't know if Kyle and Victoria told others, but as far as I know, they didn't. So watching them navigate that from a distance and doing really well at keeping their options open on that original team, I thought was really impressive. So I'm going to go with Kyle and Victoria.
Sweet. We have not had a previously voted out contestant yet be named as most impressive. So they are always on the table for future interviewees. It was just, it was the same for both of them. I didn't necessarily have one or the other, so it just didn't feel right to give it to one or the other when I was
impressed with both of them.
Well, Parker, any last things to add before we sign off?
That's a dangerous question, Ian. He opened it up. No, honestly, all joking aside, I truly enjoyed the experience. As all of you know, I accomplished a lot of what I wanted to do, and obviously, could I gone further, and did I want to go further? Sure, but it's not really about where you end up at the end of the day. It's about what you did get to do. It's so easy to focus on what didn't happen that you forget what did happen. And I'm truly happy with what did happen. So I'm all good. As I said in the episode, that's all she wrote.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, Parker, I loved watching you play. It was an honor to have you play our game. And we're glad that you had a good time. You have a great head on your shoulders and just love the positivity and very wise. I love your wisdom. So
thank you so much. I really do appreciate that, because I know just from interacting with y'all on production, I just know y'all aren't just saying that to be nice. Y'all are just very genuine. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah. And it was awesome talking with you and hearing all about your game.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for giving me the opportunity. I know I was called a lot of things in the game. I wasn't a bro. I was called a soldier, a minion. I got a lot of words. A loser, I call myself that. An introvert, a freak, and or a geek. But one thing I was not called was brief. So I appreciate y'all letting me talk about my game and asking me as many questions as you did.
Well, Parker, you were not brief during the season, and neither is Monte Carlo, because we're on Sunday night with Alex and his two guests on the recap. And next week we have episodes 9 and 10, and plus the extra content for the exit interviews and the recap at the end of the week as well. And we hope to see you again here on Dynamic Character Productions.